Minister, costs of construction are rising sharply. Yesterday we learned that child homelessness increased by 40% in the past year across Cork and Kerry. In the middle of a housing disaster, with thousands of families homeless and a whole generation trapped in a cycle of ever-increasing rents, it is increasingly expensive to build a home. And somehow the government's response is to make it more expensive. This defective concrete products levy will add up to €4,000 to the price of a house. €4,000. Even if a family benefited from every single measure in the budget last week, it's only a fraction of the cost this will impose on them. This government is making precisely the people who need support to get a home pay the price for failures they had nothing to do with while they try and get one. The scandal around mica, pyrite and fire safety defects is due to a disgraceful lack of regulation during the early noughties and irresponsible practices by some in the construction industry. The government's levy will especially hit families in rural areas who are more likely to be building their own homes. At a time when it's harder than ever to stay in a rural area and have families settle in rural communities, the government has burdened precisely those young people with the cost of paying for Fianna Fáil's mistakes. What's more is that you know this is wrong. Numerous government backbenchers pointed out this inequity in their budget speeches last week. The Minister for Finance spoke earlier about how no alternatives have been offered. The RSI have called for the levy to be scrapped and said that instead windfall corporation taxes should pay for the redress scheme. So it's not that no one's offering an alternative, it's that the government has opted to specifically penalise young families and those trying to build new homes in the middle of a housing crisis. You sat there shaking your heads earlier at people making these points, but Minister, anything that could reduce the supply of new housing at a time like this, in this kind of a housing crisis, is simply ridiculous. Along with your party's litany of failed and costly housing policies, you're actively placing barriers in the way of young families having homes.
We now move to the